Hello everybody, welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm Tone and it is really great to have you here with me once again. Today is day 37. However, I have been out into the public spaces in this last week. I kept it all up for 28 days, 29 days, something like that. But I had to get out there and see what this world looks like. And it's pretty crazy. It's quiet, yet there's still a lot of people out there doing what they would normally do. There are still a lot of people out there not wearing the mask. But hey, there's a mandate. But it's interesting, today on the news I heard that we're going to have some warmer weather. And look, we're heading for spring, aren't we? And they've warned that there's going to be army personnel out there with the police enforcing this lockdown. We've got numbers falling closer to the 100 mark, and they're looking to hopefully have it below 100 new cases every day. And it's quite likely that the numbers that they're finding being lower is due to a lot less people being tested. Even though the call is out there for people to continue to get tested, there are less and less people being tested. Now, whether that is a fatigue setting in on all of this, and who would be blamed for that. Of course, there's also talk of protests and people inciting people to protest the mask, the lockdown and everything, and they're being dubbed tinfoil hat wearers. Now, we've covered all of this in some videos several weeks ago, where it's not all one side or the other. And we're hearing rhetoric from one side saying it's one side, and from the other side, it's the other guys that are wrong. They're both extremist views, and they do not take into account everything, only one side. So that's what we're here to do, isn't it? We're here to talk about things, break them down, and actually look at the truth of the matter. Anyway, look, it's been a few days now since I've done any of these push-ups, so it'll be interesting to see how the body reacts to the long break that I've had. Now, don't have any real purpose for doing these, any real point. Just doing them. It's part of the video. I thought I'd come back and change my tack on the video, but seeing as it works to just do them as part of this, it's a habit, and it's not a bad one, so we'll keep going with it for now. If this is your first video that you've watched of mine, you can go back to the earlier videos in this playlist that I'll add this video to, and you'll see all of the things I've been talking about for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and even right back in March and April and May, and how I've called the majority of what's happened up until this point. But I am going to be honest and say that where things are going from this point, I'm not sure. I had strong convictions as to where things were going to go. As far as I'm concerned at the moment, we are still in uncharted territories. Now, if you have been following the news, you will know that Daniel Andrews has made a grab at extending his state of emergency powers for 12 months. Where that stands, I'm not sure. I do know that to some degree he has backpedaled on that and may not be seeking 12 months, but maybe 6 months or 3 months. The excuses being put out there as to the reasoning why he would need such powers has been put under the microscope by other premiers, Prime Minister, and indeed quite a number of you in the public. I'm sure you've probably heard about this stuff. Dictator Dan and all those types of terms have been thrown about. But understand that that's the general practice of the government now. And moving forward, we're going to see more evidence of this. However, in a conversation I was having earlier today, we were discussing about what that looks like. And usually we see a jump forward in what they try to push. Anyone tries to push when they're pushing an agenda. They jump forward and it's quite sharp, and people respond to it in varying different degrees. But when those things happen and then they backpedal really quickly, what they've done is they've wanted to see what response they get from the public, the people that are their constituents. They want to know what people think and how people will respond. If they openly accept it, well then great, they move forward. If not, they pull back for a period of time. However, if you look at each power grab or each new decision that's been made, we can look at, for example, the same-sex marriage plebiscite. That stuff about bringing that to a point where it's now been passed several years ago, that was a process that was put in place a long time ago. And each new push to bring something like that in was removed, or they just let it go for a little while. But by the time it was time for the final push to get it in and get it to happen, of course, they went all gung-ho. And we saw that it passed. This stuff is a pattern. And so when we see a power grab, even if it's not grabbed right now, it is a precursor. It is something that we can use as a good gauge as to what they actually want to do and eventually put into place. Now, of course, in this case, the excuse is to mitigate risk in terms of this coronavirus. But the agenda goes beyond the coronavirus, as we've already talked about. There is so much more going on here than just the virus. And we can prove that to varying degrees by what stages of practice, what things have been put in place, how it's been put in place, what processes have been followed. You bring in a crisis and it brings in the potential for these powers to be able to be put into place for a maximum of, 6 months. But a push then is, hey, this isn't finished yet. So let's push for an extension of that. But that goes beyond the current legislation. Now, we understand that the only difference here is there's a limit to the 6 months. That's what that's for. The 12 months, well, what happens if at the end of 12 months that's still not enough and they need more power, freedom of power? So, but the reasoning that they're using to say that that's what they want to do and why they want to do it, they don't run concurrently. What they want to do is being facilitated by why they need to do it at this point. But we can understand, and we can look back on this day when I speak about this stuff, and we can say eventually we got to here because they initially were doing this thing and then this thing and this thing. They had excuses along the way to do it, but they did it anyway. And we eventually get what they want us to have put in place. And eventually by that point, the majority of people accept it as that's normal, and that they'll just accept it. Now, also today, I think it's prudent to talk about our focus as people, as a society, our focus on the world and how it's run. I think it's fair to look at it a little more closely. At the moment, we've got a case where we get to see just how much freedom to choose we have if the government deems it necessary for us not to have those freedoms. We're getting a look at what that looks like. And I think it's time for quite a few people to wake up. We live in an illusion in this world, pretty much, that we live, we work, we have a family, our families are educated, we continue to work, we continue to eat, sleep, eventually we just die. And a lot of people at this point don't have work and can't go and see friends. Indeed, in some cases, can't see family. And so depression and anxiety set in. Where the next amount of money is going to come from is gone. Others who've spent decades building businesses are going to lose their livelihoods because they can't open their business. For no fault of their own, it's going to be gone. And for many, I hope that this is a drawing back of the curtain on what has been an illusion. An illusion that building a kingdom is infallible. You build a kingdom and you rule that kingdom, but in a moment it can be removed. It can be lost. And all of that effort and all of that time put into what looked like and what should have been a retirement, or what should have been more than enough, for some is going to come to nothing. Now that should be a wake-up call for a lot of people. During this pandemic, or whatever we want to call it, during this period of time in this year, a lot of people who have built up quite large kingdoms come out and complain and make many comments about the way that things shouldn't be done and how it will affect them in a financial way. Now, I'm not talking about things that impact our health and our ability to get care. That's a big deal. You know, that is a massive deal, because that can be life or death. But I'm talking about, we have a opportunity, if we had an opportunity to put away savings, we've had an opportunity to position ourselves with security. What have we done with that security? Have we built that security, but built that sense of security up on our own foundations? Or have we been wise enough to look well and truly beyond what it is right now and realize that this world has been changing our entire life? Now, I'm talking about climate change. I'm talking about the way the world operates. The things that society now accepts that they did not accept in the past. The role right now that debt plays in the world. A comparison that's really good is my grandfather was able to pay for everything in terms of new machinery and expanding land, expanding his land portfolio and everything. In a matter of a short number of years, he was able to exponentially expand. By the time it was my dad's turn and his brothers expanded out to try to do the same thing, The power that they were able to put into that didn't change, but the amount that power had, the ability to do the same as what my grandfather was able to achieve, was minuscule in comparison. And then you come to my generation, where there's absolutely no way I could achieve, even if I did 10 times the work, 10 times the effort that my grandfather did. There is no way that I could achieve the exact same results as he did. It's not possible. The reason? The world has changed. In that time also, ideals, morals, care that was shown to people, manners, common sense, those things were in good supply. And we've lost a lot of that since that time. So we can compare over those 3 generations, from my grandfather to my dad to me, a lot has changed in this world. And we can't look at the world through the same lenses that we would have back in those days. Things are very, very different. And we, as a society, we as people, need to wake up to that. We continue to live in this great Australian dream, so to speak, where we think that we educate ourselves, we go to get educated, we go to get a uni degree, or we go to get a job, we go to work hard, we go to put money away, and we build, and we have a family, and then we go into retirement. If you believe that everything that happened at our grandfather's time and in our father's time, or grandparents' time, parents' time, and our time, if you believe that this next level and how we raise our children and how we do what we do in terms of a career and what that looks like in the future is going to be the same as what it was all those years ago, you're kidding yourself. And all of what's going on right now is proof that nothing is the same and nothing will be the same as that. So we need to be very careful about these kingdoms that we might happen to be building. To what end? And how are we using our financial power or our influence, if our power is how we think and how we share our material? How are we using our time, which is the most valuable asset we have? It's the most finite item that we have at our disposal. How are we using that? This is very important for us to be looking at and understanding. So it's one thing to have been working to this point, to building a portfolio of whatever we want to call it, and putting things together. But now is a time to be preparing for a very, very different looking society, a very, very different looking way that the world's going to operate. Don't be under the illusion that what was is going to be what continues to be into the future. It's not true. It's not going to be that. And the only ones that are going to truly be prepared and survive the new era that we're moving into, whether it be as soon as the next couple of years, or whether it be a decade from now. Just what we saw with the financial crisis and various other issues all in between that and before that, we've come to this one. There's an exponential increase, with periods of time of ease, with periods of time of some steady growth, whatever they want to call it. Growth means just more debt money, you understand. But those times were easier, and then crunch, another crunch time. Each one of these is getting bigger. Each crunch time is getting bigger and affecting people in a wider area. This current one is worldwide. And we're talking about travel bubbles. We're talking about so many things that would be, well, it's unprecedented. So we need to be really careful about what we're looking forward, how we're looking forward. We need to be very careful about how we're preparing for that. Now, that's not something where we need to be fearful of what's coming. But it's no good to look at all of the things that have happened up until this point and what is happening now and make no preparations for what could be the next step. If you've got the knowledge at your disposal, if you've got the common sense to look at things the way that they really are, not the way that you'd like to believe that they are, but yet you don't put those things into practice, you don't make the preparations that you could make. We're all guilty of that to some degree because we'd like to believe that everything is just roses and happy times. But if that is what happens, then when calamity comes, when trying times come and there's no preparation, well, we've only got ourselves to blame. It's no good jumping up and down and calling out to the politicians who are making their power grabs and shutting down borders and all of those sorts of things if we haven't actually looked at what potentially could happen and made the preparations for it. Again, I'm not talking about the care and caregiving and the health needs. Those things are very valid points. We want to take care of that because they can be matters of life and death. But when we're talking about how we work our finances, how we prepare our businesses, we have to be prepared, covering everything, including government decision, legislation, and all of those things. We've got to be across it all. And we can't say that just because these restrictions have been put in place for whatever reason that they've deemed it necessary, that because of this, I'm left with this. Now, it caught a lot of people off guard, but next time something like this comes, it can't catch you off guard. You've got to be prepared for what it can look like very soon. That's my encouragement to you and my stark warning to you. Be aware. Things are not going to be the same into the future, the same as what they were in the past. So, I'll leave that with you. Thank you so much for joining me once again on the breakdown. Just understand that it's your responsibility to take care of yourself and whoever depends on you. And regardless of what the government chooses to do, regardless of what other people around you choose to do, the responsibility still remains yours. Thank you for joining me on the breakdown. Please like the video if you liked it. Please subscribe to the channel if you feel so led. Please share the video. And mark the little notification bell so that it lets you know you get some notification about the new videos that I put up. And above all, be listening to those that are in the minority when they're talking sense. Even if you might think, first off, that it seems quite nonsensical. If it's a view you haven't heard before, ears open and eyes open. Everything is valuable to at least hear. You can throw it out later. But if it's presented to you and you don't even look at it, one of the most unwise things we can ever do. That's all. Bless you all. God bless. And I will see you in the next videos. Take care and bye for now.